Have you heard about this personal and professional podcast?
Coaching in Session
with your host, Michael Rearden.
When it comes to certainty, people sometimes forget the crucial factor themselves, because we can be uncertain about the bills, the home, the relationships, the career, right? We can look at every aspect of our life and we can be uncertain in it. Are we going to have food to eat? Are we going to have a roof over our heads? Are we going to be able to pay the tuition for our kids to go to school? There are many things that we might be kind of juggling. We're trying to make ends meet today. So uncertainty is going to continue to loom. But the reality is we can do something about it. And I know right now might be a more difficult time because of all the political things that have happened, and people are still in a rigmarole of life and they're like trying to figure out things and they're planning, but maybe they're planning for their own disaster. I don't know. There's so many different things that people are feeling and experiencing and going through right now. And the uncertainty is going to continue to be there because, in a sense, the uncertainty never ends. You might feel confident in yourself. So you're confident that you can go talk to the girl, talk to the guy, maybe do a public presentation, a presentation at work or whatever. Maybe confident in your sales skills. I mean, we can go down the list of things that you could be confident in. But uncertainty might be, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this in the next 5 years or 10 years because it could be too demanding. Because maybe your job is really stressful. One of the things that I saw growing up, like my father, he was in construction and he had all of these certifications and all these licenses and he made good money, but it was only for his profession. So the moment he was taken from that field because he couldn't do it anymore because it's a very strenuous type of job, then all his certifications were null. He didn't have a plan going forward. So then he had to basically start over from scratch, start from zero, build himself up, rock bottom. You might think that that's impossible. Well, it is not impossible. It's just daunting. Where you might have a skill set right now, and your skill set could be maybe in the oil industry. And the only thing you know how to do is drill for oil. But then let's say we don't frack oil or we don't drill for oil anymore. What do? Do you say, well, like I don't have a job. Like, what do I do? You might say, well, I guess I can go pick up carpentry. I can go maybe start a business. I can maybe do some electrical work. I can build homes. We can start to move in that direction to gain new skills and things along those lines. But the reality is, how can we be bulletproof? How can we be bulletproof from whatever comes our way? And so we have to do a set of things in order for that to happen, right? So even though uncertainty is always going to be there, we can be better equipped. And we're going to be talking about that today. But before we do that, I want to take a quick look at this blog right here, TOS Part 64, Moving in and Then Past Uncertainty. Now, of course, the tune-up series are geared at helping people with strong mindsets already that are already in a good position. Not so much of only financial good positions, but at least they're mentally stable that they can say, okay, I see there's a problem. Let me start to make some changes. So the first thing is we need to understand what uncertainty is. And uncertainty essentially is just being unsure of what's going to happen in the future. We want to maybe have this grandiose envision for our dreams. And typically when we dream, we don't dream of like the bad stuff happening all the time. And I'm not saying that you might not look at an outcome and say, oh, I'm going to lose, or, oh, I'm going to fail, or there's going to be a mistake. Like if you have to do a recital or something, you think about falling. But the reality is when we dream, typically in our free time, we are dreaming of the good stuff, right? We're dreaming of the houses, we're dreaming of the cars, we're dreaming of the family, we're dreaming of the big plans. And what needs to happen from those dreams is we need to take action. However, if we are going to be uncertain in how we're going to move, we are not going to take action readily because we're going to be waiting for the perfect time, the perfect moment, the perfect situation, the perfect circumstance. Is that you? Because if it is you, understand that uncertainty is a part of the package. If you want to live life to the fullest, uncertainty is going to be around every corner, it's going to be in every moment because we can't see the future. We can, of course, plan for the future, but when it comes to predicting the outcome, it's always uncertain. Now, we can give ourselves a probability, maybe even a close probability, a probability of 100. Maybe the probability is I'm not going to stop until I'm successful, right? Well, the car that was not paying attention or the driver that wasn't paying attention in the car while you were on the crosswalk walking when you had the right of way, this little white person on the light saying, hey, you can walk. And that driver just was on their phone, not paying attention. And sure enough, boom, they knock you out and you are now in a coma, right? It's unfortunate, but it wasn't part of your plans, right? You were so certain about being successful, right? And that is life. Life can hit you when you least expect it. It can knock you down. It can knock you out. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to keep you down. It's going to keep you out. Because the moment you wake up, you can start again. Now, of course, you might have some struggles you might have to go through, some challenges you might have to heal from and overcome, right? The therapy process and the rehab process, those things are going to be something that you have to deal with. But it is certain that you're going to go through them if you want to. And this is the idea in the part where I'm talking about moving in and accepting, uncertainty is going to be there, right? It's an understanding. Because if we understand that it's okay that moments are uncertain or that we are not in full control, then that is when we can truly see that there is power in that. For example, when we look at parenting, right, there's so many examples that we can use, but parenting, I think, is going to be a good example. Plus, it's going to be something we're going to be talking about later on this week, where if you are a parent and you're telling your kid to do everything, you're trying to micromanage their whole entire life, at some point, they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing. All right. Unless you're able to really create that dependence and where they always feel like they need you. It's only going to take one time for them to realize they don't need you. For example, a kid might say, Mommy, I need you. Daddy, I need you. And they're crying. There's so many great books on, like let them cry it out. Like if a child's crying and they're looking for attention, like let them cry it out. At some point they learn like, okay, wait, I didn't need them. And it's not so much of they don't need you or they don't want to be around you or want you, but they understand that there is a power within them that they can overcome things. And we all have that power. But sometimes we might feel helpless. We might feel like we can't move past this moment, right? It might be too scary. It might be too big. It might be too confusing. What do we do, right? Now, I give some strategies here in the article where we're talking about, you can do meditation, you could take small steps in breaking things down. And, these are all great things. So I encourage you to check out the article for the list of the full steps. But when it comes to if you want to get past uncertainty, 100%, right? You have to keep on moving. No one knows what their next step is truly going to bring. For example, let's say you're in the forest and you're just like hiking and stuff like that. If you don't pay attention, you're going to trip. You're going to trip on a rock. You're going to trip on a tree root. You're going to trip on your shoelaces, your own self. Who knows? If you have a dog and the dog's running around, you're going to trip on the dog. We have kids. The kids are running around. You're going to trip on your kids. Maybe, who knows? There is a possibility that you can trip. That step that you took that you might not even be paying attention to, you might make a choice where it's like, uh-oh, I'm going under. I'm falling. And then in that moment, your brain shifts. It's like, okay, what to do? Maybe you got to tuck in and roll. Maybe you are going to try to stop the fall of your hand or something so you don't hit your face. You cover your head, right? There's many different things you can do, but you prepare. I like to think of it as when you're about to jump into the pool. All right. You're not going to jump in the pool and start taking a big breath as your mouth goes in the water. Like take a big breath of water. Like that would be a bad idea. Typically, when you're jumping into the pool, what people do, right, is they might close their eyes, they might hold their breath, they'll cover their nose, and then they're jumping into the pool, right? So this is all happening at once. Now, they're almost certain that they can swim. If they do not know how to swim, something different happens. They start to panic. So they close their eyes. They might hold their breath. They are flailing their arms typically, and you can tell they're afraid. Now, if their eyes are open, their eyes are literally open. I'm talking about bing, like wide eyes. You can see the whites of their eyes because they're trying to see what can they see. Does that make sense? Because if I can see a rope, if I can see a buoy, if I can see someone, if I can see a life vest, I need to be able to see it. And something happens in those moments, and people don't truly realize that in each moment, we can see that wide, we can see that broad, we can sort of see our blind spots. However, it doesn't take away the aspect and the power of getting a coach, a mentor, someone there to help you, teammate, a friend, a spouse, a family member, someone, right? Someone to help you. It's easier because until you are fully confident in yourself, we can use swimming again. Typically, you don't want to swim by yourself. If you are a person who's a little bit timid, you can go by yourself and you can eventually get that timidness out of you. But the quicker way to do things sometimes is just to have someone who's the opposite. I know it sounds crazy, right? If I'm timid, why would I want to hang around someone who's courageous and outgoing? Well, it rubs off on you. Of course, we talk about this all the time, right? You are the accumulation of the 5 people that you keep around you the closest. I like to have different groups for different situations. Ladies, you probably have multiple shoes for different situations. And if you don't, tell my wife so she can stop buying shoes. But the reality is there's different outfits for different occasions. Why not have different people for different spots in your life? So you might say, my career, I got my career folk, let's say a spiritual religion. I got my folks for that, right? Maybe you have entrepreneur business stuff, right? You got your folks for that. All right. You have different things for different areas, right? Now, I'm not saying that you can't commingle. I'm not saying that you can't do that. When I was in high school, or actually in college, actually in both, I had different groups. I hanged out with everyone. I hanged out with the cool kids, the jocks, the nerds, the honors kids. You name it, I was there. And of course, there's times when I would say, okay, this is kind of my spot. I kind of like this spot for now, but it doesn't mean that I can't go over here when I want to. I get to choose, right? I had that flexibility. And the flexibility was, what am I trying to do right now? Am I trying to excel? So when I wanted to excel my junior and my senior year, because that's probably the most important years in high school, if you go to high school, you want those years to be good grades typically, right? Because when you go to college and they look at transcripts, and when you go for internships, they are looking at those last 2 years, right? Because that's going to be a barometer or a ascending scale for what they're going to be looking at. So if you started poor in your freshman year, and then you did even poorer in your sophomore year, and then you did bad in your junior year, they see a descending scale. If you started strong in your freshman year, you did bad in your sophomore year, you did good in your junior year, you did good in your senior year, it's a good possibility that you figured it out, right? If you are going to be someone who just bad across the board, they, like recruiters are going to see that. People see that. People notice that. People know when you're ready. People know when you're confident. People know when, if, or are you filled with uncertainty? So there is that aspect that you can surround yourself with people who are certain to an extent, because uncertainty is always going to, again, be lingering. But there's going to be things that you can do to mitigate it, basically, is what I'm trying to say. For example, let's say I know I have a full plate, right? I got a business to run, podcast, all the guests, I got kids, I got a wife, I got family, right? I have a lot of stuff on my plate. Doesn't mean that my plate is impossible. It doesn't mean that my shoes that I walk in every single day, that someone else can't do it, right? Anyone can do it. I'm not saying that you would like it or anything, but anyone can do what I'm doing. The reality is, in my life, even though it's so busy, I look for individuals, moments, whenever, that I can bring in this uncertainty that, is the podcast going to do good? Is the business going to do good? Is the marriage going to do good? Is, everything going to work out with my kids in school, right? Like, we can look at all the uncertainties, but you surround yourself with people who are going to give you that inspiring aspect, that inspiring figure. The way I like to phrase it is, when you have someone that can believe in you and you're trying to believe in yourself, at some point, the belief is going to transfer from them to you. It's almost like you are not fully confident. And this happens a lot with kids, right? So they're not confident in something. And the moment they do it once or twice, or they do it consistently, they're like, I got this. This is cool. Adults think very different than children, because a child who's learning how to walk is very different than an adult that has once walked and has maybe lost their ability to walk and they have to relearn to walk. Because for them, they have this stigma that I used to be able to do this, but now I can't. I can't do it as good, so why even bother? So we play it safe. We don't dare anymore. For example, when's the last time you read a book? I understand, like, my audience, we're into personal development, self-help, but just ask a person who doesn't listen to the podcast. So anyone who you haven't shared the podcast with, and you just ask the question, say, hey, when's the last time you read a book from cover to cover? All right. I'm not talking about just one page. I'm not talking about an article online, something that they like. I'm not talking about they read some directions or whatever. I'm talking about book, cover to cover. Not even audiobooks, like literally a hardcover book. You would be amazed at how many people will say, whoa, I can't even remember. Maybe high school or something. Maybe it was in college, if they went to college. But the reality is, most people don't remain consistent in their development. So at some point, they get comfortable. They just kind of say, okay, well, I figure things out as they come to me. And this is going to cause maybe the most uncertainty, because you're not preparing yourself for the shift in the time. When came about, right? The planes, the cars, the refrigerators, the homes, right? All of this, all these wonderful advances to our technology. We began to lose something within ourselves and in our mindset. One of the things that we lost, and maybe the most critical thing that we lost, is that we lost the ability to be confident in our own skills. Because if I want to do some math now, I get a calculator. Of course, when I was young, my dad made me learn all the times tables and division and everything. It was a little piece of paper, and I would fold it. And it was like yellow because it was like so old. And I guess he had it and maybe got passed down. I don't know where that paper is, but I'm sure it's somewhere like in my mom's house. But We had to learn from that paper. My brother had it, then I had it, and then I don't know if I gave it to my sister, but if she got it, then it's definitely lost. Who knows? I gave her a laptop one time for college, and that laptop is gone. No idea where the laptop went, but whatever. We are learning our skills. We're confident in our skills. And at some point, we delegate our skills to something, and we have delegated our skills to technology. So it is easy for us to be uncertain in something that we do. We're like, oh, I got to double check something. And it's okay to double check. I'm not saying that you should always be like 100% certain. Like, I'm 100% certain that this is that. Well, I guess you could be 100% certain for certain things. But when we are just looking at life, right? Our day, when you wake up, right? Is it 100% certain you're going to have a wonderful day? Well, yeah, you can have that mindset, right? Like, today is going to be a wonderful day, but then maybe you get bad news, your dog dies, or maybe you lose your job, you get in a car accident. You could still say it's a wonderful day, but then you do have to give some attention to that there have been some hiccups in your day. Because at the end of the day, you can say that today was a learning experience. Today was a wonderful day, right? What does wonderful truly mean for you? Because anyone can say today was a wonderful day, and they can be living under a bridge, and maybe they got some food from a stranger or whatever, right? And some money. When we're trying to get past this hierarchy of what's uncertain, is we need to develop a system. We need to develop some habits. And I talk about it in this blog here, this TOS part 64, moving in and then past uncertainty. We go through the aspects of uncertainty, understanding uncertainty, accepting it, and then the strategies to overcome it. Because, of course, we can give ourselves a good diet and a good gym regimen. But if we don't give ourselves a good mindset, if we don't give ourselves a good support system, and I'm talking about those coaches, those mentors, those friends that truly care and they truly want you to succeed, and the overall happiness and totality of you that is good, that right there is worth its weight in gold. But if you don't have a support system, you are going to be uncertain because you're placing all of the burden on yourself. You are going to be the proponent. Am I going to be able to do this? And most people, when it comes to them having to do something, it's like, I might be able to do it. There's a probability I can do it. I know I've done it before. But think of great action and doing good things in your life. How many people take initiative to do the things? New Year's resolutions is coming up. Guess what? Are people going to say, you know what, this year I'm going to just do it. I'm going to hit it. I'm going to knock it out of the park no matter what? Sure, right? They might give themselves this mindset initially, but the uncertainty is going to be that whisper. And that whisper is going to get louder. But then you have to say that I'm not going to let this whisper drown out the potential. There's always going to be moments. There's always going to be feelings of uncertainty, but there's always going to be you there to overcome the odds. And I always encourage people. I say, listen, life has all these twists and turns, and you have to pivot. You have to do this. You can be certain in your abilities, right? 100%, right? You could be certain that you're going to make it out of a situation. Sometimes even like a really bad one. You might say, I don't know how I'm going to get out, but I know I'm going to get out. That could be the first step. But then we have to do the things, we have to implement the things we talked about today in the podcast. Maybe the most important one is making sure you have a system, a support system, a system to how you do things in your day, from your morning routine all the way to your nighttime routine. Everything is going to lead to a better proponent in saying, this uncertainty is valid, but it's not going to be something that's going to happen readily because I'm already doing things to mitigate it. So, for example, me having a concussion and being in a really bad car accident, I cannot drive. That's probably not what you should do. But maybe I'm going to start to pay more attention to the road. I'm going to watch the speed limit, things along those lines. Sure, right? But they even say that people who drive fast and stuff like that are actually safer drivers. because they're paying attention more. Most people who are kind of just doing the speed limit, they're on autopilot. All right. We can't be on autopilot all the time. We have to say, if something is wrong, if something is shaky, right? If something is deteriorating, if something is cracking, let's pay attention. And if we can pay attention more readily, then that is when these moments of uncertainty are going to start to slim down. And then they're going to start to be less of them in our day. And that is what we're looking for, to have less uncertainty so we can have more certainty. We are moving towards something that's going to shift our perspective and what we can do each and every day. So be sure to continue the process, follow us, share the episode to give yourself this aspect that you can do it too. And there's no stopping you unless you decide that.